Hello everybody and welcome to the REX Driving Profitability in Real Estate webinar for today. My name is Manuel Stiphout. I am the founder and director of DotWood, and today we are going to talk about with our presenters and guests on how to apply technology in the real estate market. So let me start off with our agenda for today and the topics which we are going to cover. We are going to start off with a couple of introductions, and of course I would like to welcome our guests and speakers for today. So a little bit about our company DotWood. We are a specialized Microsoft Dynamics CRM partner with many years of experience. And as Christian told us, we have a focus on the real estate sector, and therefore we offer tailor-made solutions for the real estate sector. Our main office is in Amsterdam, and we have locations throughout Europe. We are a certified partner with Microsoft, and we are the first official reseller of Ascendix today. On our REX Dynamics offering, this is a suite of solutions specifically designed for the real estate. And when we look at this market, we offer solutions for all kinds of segments. On the commercial side, there's the commercial real estate, also corporate real estate. And on the social side, we have housing associations, also known as woningcorporaties, and municipalities and government. Today we will discuss the Ascendix solutions, and we will be offering them as part of the REX Dynamics offering. And we will therefore be focusing on the commercial real estate segment.
It's exciting for us here at Ascendix to be a party to this relationship. Very excited about moving the success that we've had domestically in the United States over here to the European sector. And this is a great first step, having arranged a strategic partnership with DotWood CRM. So let me give you a quick word or two about Ascendix, and then what I'd like to do is introduce you to one of our top clients, JLL, and what we're doing with them. So Ascendix has been in business for approximately 20 years, all of which have been focused in the CRM space. 10 years ago, we decided to go ahead and verticalize in the commercial real estate sector. First, just as a professional services firm that had exhibited deep expertise in the market, and then evolved into a product developer, which we now have called AscendixRE, which is powered by both Microsoft Dynamics on-premise and Microsoft CRM Online. We're based in Dallas, Texas, and we have around 70 employees and are a gold partner of Microsoft and enjoy a really deep relationship with them. So let's go ahead and move into an introduction, I guess, for Chad.
All right.
Chad Lindsey is the Vice President and for JLL in the Global IT Department, and is a friend and a business partner with us. And we've been established with, I guess, 4 or 5 years worth of a relationship. And so Chad, why don't I turn it over to you and allow you to give yourself a proper introduction, and then we can start some Q&A on that front.
Sounds good. As I said, my name is Chad Lindsey. I'm the Vice President of Global IT for JLL, formerly known as Jones Lang-Lasalle, for those of you in the commercial real estate biz. If you don't know about JLL, we are a comprehensive commercial real estate company. We cover all facets of commercial real estate. We have corporate services, tenant representation, property management, agency, leasing, valuations, consultations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty much anything that can be done with commercial real estate, we do. We currently have just over 58,000 employees and 230 offices in 80 different countries. It's been a good several years for us. We've been doing some pretty sustainable growth over the past 10, 12 years. Back in 2004, revenue was right around 1.1 billion, and last year we set a record with 4.7 billion. Know the first 2 quarters of this year we set 2 new records, so this looks to be another record year for us. So things are going very well. 60 plus mergers and acquisitions in the last 10 years. And I can't even count how many we've done this year. I'm afraid if I did, I might give away that we might have more left. So I'm just going to not give out a number. So that's kind of who I am and who JLL is.
Well, thanks, Chad. So why don't we give some background to what we're talking about today, which is the CRM initiative there at JLL. So if you could share with us how long JLL has had an active CRM initiative.
Well, longer than I've been around. They originally went on a Microsoft CRM back in 2007, I believe, but they had several different CRMs before that. Microsoft was the first global solution implemented in order to kind of consolidate all of that around the world and make sure that we were all speaking the same language when it came to CRM.
So you said all around the world. Perhaps you could describe the scale of the implementation to date, and that JLL is a global company. What have you done on that front?
Yeah, so we were actually doing some data analysis last week in a conference, and we have data from 171 different countries. I can't count how many users we have in those, or how many different countries we have users in, but I know that we're pushing about 5,000 users now, maybe 4,500, with a recent expansion throughout AP. Yeah, I don't know exactly how many countries we have users in. I'd have to go do that analysis, but I know that we have data for 100. We have properties for 171 different countries in the system right now, and so I would guess that the number of countries we actually have people, users in, is probably 60 to 80, just as a guess.
Excellent. So, Chad, there are many mature solutions out there in the marketplace today. Can you maybe share with us the key contributors to deciding on Microsoft Dynamics CRM as the platform of choice?
Once again, that decision was made before me, but I know that one of the main factors that went into that was it's Microsoft. I mean, that's always a big one. But then it's the integration with Outlook. You know, when you're talking about a customer relationship management system, you're talking about your contacts and the companies you work with, and everybody has those in their Outlook contacts. So a seamless integration between CRM and Outlook was kind of a no-brainer where we needed to go. The other thing that had to fall in was it had to be global, had to be multilingual, all the things check for Microsoft CRM.
So when we started a relationship with you, you really had deployed the vanilla or out-of-the-box version of Dynamics CRM, and the reason for our dialogue initially was there was a contemplation of AscendixRE for the vanilla or out-of-the-box implementation. Can you describe what it was that you saw specifically for JLL that led you to the decision to select AscendixRE on top of the Dynamics platform?
I believe it was 3 years of trying to build it ourselves and failing miserably. Then seeing your product that did everything that we were trying to do as far as tracking properties, relating leases and sales to those properties and the availabilities, and even the solutions with opportunities and closing out those opportunities and creating leases and sales, etc. So really, we had been trying to build this for a long time and just was not getting anywhere, and we saw your solution, and it was like a light bulb going off, and it's like, that's exactly what we've been trying to build.
So we've been working together for some time, and as I mentioned early on, there is both an on-premise and an online version of Dynamics, and organizations will, for their own reasons, choose one strategy or the next. Talk a little bit, if you could, on the recent decision at JLL to move from on-premise to online. What drove you to that conclusion?
In simplest terms, we're not an IT company, we're a real estate company. And so Microsoft offers their CRM online where they handle the upgrades, they handle the hardware, they deal everything with for us, which really lets us focus on what we do best, and that is commercial real estate. So That's basically in the simplest terms. The other thing was our brokers, our users, were constantly coming to us saying, hey, I just saw this latest and greatest thing that Microsoft is doing in CRM. How come we don't have it? And we were getting real tired of the response of having to say, well, we don't have that in on-prem yet, or we haven't got that upgrade in yet, or we're working on that. Whereas when we moved online, as soon as the latest and greatest comes out, we get it, we're on it, and the brokers feel like they have the best.
Great. Well, let's maybe move more from a historical perspective to kind of an overview of some of the business challenges that JLL has administered with CRM. So maybe some pointed questions here. In an organization the size of JLL, there's quite a bit of data that's being generated on a daily basis, and that can be overwhelming for an organization of your size, and how to manage it and how to deliver that. Give us a sense as to how AscendixRE and Dynamics is helping overcome this big data challenge.
Well, let me tackle the AscendixRE side first. One of the biggest benefits we've seen as far as people is tying people to sales and leases through the Ascendix tool. So I can go in and I can see that, say this broker that I'm working with that's representing someone else, he represented 2 or 3 other people on other deals that I've done or other leases that I've done. And so being able to reference that, look at the activities tied to those transactions really seems to help in, the go forward. And then another example would be, well, one of the big ones that we hit is, the activities from a predecessor. So we had a broker in and he's retired or he's moved on to somewhere else, and I inherit his accounts. Well, with Microsoft CRM, I can go in and I can look through all the previous activities and get a feeling for what his relationship was with these clients. Was it a strong relationship? Did he, was there animosity there, or was there issues, or was it, good? And just kind of gives me an idea of what that client is to work with. So those are 2 ways Microsoft CRM and AscendixRE have helped us kind of work through all this data that we have.
Yeah, as I say often, and I know you've heard me say this, most of the commercial real estate organizations have lived in what we call the islands of information phenomenon, where very little of the data is connected, and to your point, it creates visibility challenges, and there are blind spots that cause and inhibit an organization to work in a less efficient manner. So that's good feedback. So let's talk a little bit about competitive advantage. It's imperative now that one be able to show their market knowledge when they're in front of their clients, so that they can show the ability to satisfy the requirement, whether it be some sort of an investor or a prospective tenant or even a landlord. You've done some interesting things with the solution to help in this regard of showing market knowledge. If you could, just share a little bit of that.
Okay, I'm going to take that in 2 parts, because first, one thing that we've done is we've taken, and I'm going to use the JLL terms on this because I know that a lot of this is in your product and some of it we've renamed, but we've taken what we call preferences, and that allows us to enter in the information of somebody if they're looking for a particular type of building, or if they're looking for a particular, to buy or to lease. So we can gather that information, and then with the tool that you've provided to us, we can quickly link that to availabilities that we have in the system. So I can be on the phone with somebody, I can be entering in exactly what they're looking for, hit search, and up pops a list of availabilities that quickly tells me, okay, these are the properties that we have that match, these are the suites that are available in them, etc. So that is critical. Well, we've also taken that a step further with your help and gone mobile with that, and we actually have a presentation, tablet presentation application where we have slimmed that down to making it real pretty and marketing looking, to where I can pull out my iPad, I can pull up a map, draw a circle on it with my finger, or maybe draw all the way up and down a subway line or a rail line and say, okay, you want to be on this subway line, let's circle. It highlights all the availabilities for them. I can say, okay, so, sit right in front of them, which one of these do you like? Okay, let's narrow the search. Maybe you want A-class properties, let's narrow that search down. And when I get down to a list of properties that they're interested in, I can simply check the availabilities and send them brochures right there. So without even leaving their office, they have an email in their inbox with brochures of the availabilities that they're interested in. So it's really both of those. It's if I'm not with them, it's entering the preferences and matching them up to the availabilities and then sending off a brochure from my desk. And if I'm sitting there with them, having a very clean, slick-looking presentation or tablet application that I can just walk through. And that's got some wow factor to it because they really see the knowledge that we have about commercial real estate. Because we put in other people's availabilities and not just the ones we are representing. So it really shows our knowledge of the market.
Right. Now, I know because we've been working together on this, but perhaps you can share with us a little bit of what JLL has done with this big data and bringing it to life with graphics and charts, whether that be traditional dashboards. If you could share a little bit what we're doing, I think that's pretty interesting.
Well, the first one and the original wow factor was the dynamic stacking plans. It's going and clicking a button and being able to see your availabilities and leases all put into a stacking plan for you. You make a change and the stacking plan automatically adjusts, as opposed to the old way of doing of having to build it out in Excel or all the different tools the brokers were using to do it. So that originally caught everybody's eye, was just being able to immediately do that. And then the recent wow, and this has been really wowing people lately, is the insights view in SmartClient. And so to give you an idea of what that is, it's different graphs and charts about whatever we're searching on. So if I'm searching for companies, the insights view will tell me what industries are the companies that I have in my results in? Are they in my top 10? What kind of revenue are we seeing from those? So where are they located on maps? So Wes, are you going to demo any of that later? Or?
We'll touch on some of that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that insights view has been huge because it really gives the brokers an idea of I'm searching through my companies, I've narrowed it down to a certain group, now what do I know about this group of companies? And we have those same insights view on properties. You can look at leases. So leases, what are the ones in my group that expire first? What's the average lease rate? All kinds of smart information that you would normally have to run several different reports to get is presented to you in a kind of a dashboard sense based on your search results. So the more I narrow my results, the more refined those insights become. So that's been a pretty big helper lately, the latest thing out, and brokers are loving it.
Yeah, people like pictures, and just reams and reams of paper with data can oftentimes numb the brain, whereas you put that into a picture and it tells a different story. So thanks for sharing. One of the things I can tell someone who asks me, what is it like to sell into the commercial real estate sector? I say there are some areas that are very predictable in terms of hot buttons that are going to come up in a sales call. And one of those, and I'm sure anybody that's on the phone here can sympathize, is the delicate balance of sharing data. Enough to where you're able to raise the bar and become more efficient and effective at your job, but not so much that you expose your secret sauce. So perhaps you can share how JLL has tackled the issue of data sharing and security and visibility so that they can maintain that balance and not disenfranchise the broker from using the tool, but actually get them to come to the table and using the tool, and that it's going to make them better.
Okay, I can give you kind of a quick technical overview, and then I'll tell you a story about that kind of highlights exactly what we're talking about. And the technical overview is we're pretty much wide open except for opportunities and then certain lease and sale financial data that we need to keep confidential for various reasons. Opportunities, the brokers can share out to whoever they want. They can set we have different security levels that they're set, and we dynamically share some of that for them. And that kind of keeps, I'm working with a client. I don't want anybody to know about it yet because I'm not sure where this is going it keeps that kind of to themselves and makes them feel secure. Outside the system, we have global protocols that basically say if I'm working with a client and I've marked myself as, hey, I'm working with this person, if you then contact that person without contacting me first, there are global protocols that go into place for that start with things like a slap on the wrist, losing your commission, and if this continues to be a problem, then you will no longer work for JLL. So that's kind of protocols outside the system. But then the story that I was going to say that just recently heard kind of highlights the importance of data sharing. And that is, I was talking with some guys in the UK, and they are wanting to come on one of our latest and greatest changes that Ascendix has. And we were talking about sharing data. And they made the statement, they said, well, we just got onto this latest platform recently and started really training people up and getting on it. And one of our guys put in one of his availabilities into the system. A couple of days later, a broker from the US calls him and says, hey, I see this availability you have. It matches the preference to one of my clients over here, and he's looking to expand to the UK. I'll give you 25% of my commission if you can help me out on this and get him landed in that building. The broker in the UK basically just set him up with the right people and let the US broker work it, and then got a check for 25% of the commission. So as soon as that got out, UK brokers started madly entering all the data they could possibly get in, and then scouring the activities of the US brokers to see if they had said anything about needing UK. And it's been spreading. We've got a lot of work going now between the US and UK simply because they are now sharing and mining data and calling each other. They can tell who's working with the client from the activities, and then what we, a customization we have called JLL Contact. And just by having that information and knowing who to call on the JLL side, they're making money. So yeah, data sharing is huge with us, and it's really expanding. We're starting to see that more in AP. We've got similar stories out of Australia, New Zealand, and now that we're expanding throughout AP, we're expecting more and more of that throughout that region.
I think those stories are great, and it's a fantastic way to take a sensitive and highly emotionally charged topic and turn it from a negative into a positive. And I think if we had more time, we could share others as well on that front. But let's move on so we can get to this material. There are a number of data services out there that exist that are available for consumption, whether that be company and contact data marts or property, lease, and availability type data marts that if molded into your CRM platform can really bring a lot of value. Talk a little bit about what JLL has done on that front and what it's meant to the brokerage community when actually executed on.
Okay, let me think about that. So I would say there's probably a couple of different ones that we use that probably get the most global kind of wow. One is Inside View, and for those of you that aren't aware of Inside View, I would check it out. It's insideview.com, and basically it gives you all kinds of information and background about a particular company. So that is now embedded in our CRM. If you're on CRM Online, you may see that in Social Insights. But it basically tells you this is the company, this is all the information. They go and mine that information from all these different sources, and they can tell you what their revenue is, who their people are that are associated with that company, what their LinkedIn is, what their Twitter accounts are. And then the things that we really use is kind of the latest and greatest news. So we can go and we can track certain companies and put a follow list on them and see, did they recently have an acquisition? Well, are they going to need real estate, or are they going to need to get rid of real estate because they had an acquisition? Things like that. Are they looking to move to another region? So all of that is data that Inside View provides. We've got a widget that Ascendix has embedded in their SmartClient, and we also see it in CRM. So that's a big one that we use, and the brokers really love. And there's another one that they use, and it may not be as much of a wow to them, but it does give us a lot of helpful data, and that is Address Doctor from Informatica. So we've embedded that, and when we enter in a company, a contact, or a property, and you enter in that address, we have a validation button that it calls the Informatica Address Doctor, pops up the address and a map, and shows them basically, hey, is this what you mean? And or we can't find that address, and please, give us more details. They can narrow it down, they can make sure they have it correct on the map, and then they save that, and now we've got lat long for that location, and we've got a address that's formatted correctly, because Address Doctor will give us back that address as all its pieces and parts. So if you think of an address as street start, street end, direction, street name, street type, all of that broken out, in different parts of the world that concatenates back in different ways. So some people like the street direction first and then the street name, and other people put the street direction at the end. Sometimes the street name is first line of address 1 and the street number is at the end of address 1. So Ascendix has built us something that basically says, no matter how it's entered in, Address Doctor gives us back that address and all the pieces and parts, and it gets put back together correctly based on the country. So not a wow for the brokers, but they really do appreciate being able to see their properties on a map, their companies and their contacts on a map, and all of that comes from Address Doctor. And the other thing they appreciate is their addresses are formatted correctly for the country, whether they're in that country and know how to enter it or not, and that comes from Ascendix's code for that, and being able to rearrange everything the way it's supposed to be, regardless whether I know whether it's supposed to be or not.
Well, thanks, Chad. And there are a number of other questions that I anticipate will come from the Q&A session. But what I'd like to do is stop at this juncture with the interview format here and actually show some of the product that we've helped you with and is available in the marketplace for the commercial estate industry. And then we'll give some time for some Q&A on the back end. So thanks again for that, Chad, and we'll get back with you here on the tail end.
Sounds good.
So let's move towards the demonstration here, and I'm going to give an overview that will probably last about 15, maybe 20 minutes, and that we're not going to be able to get every nook and cranny of the application, but it'll give you a sense for the specificity of AscendixRE for the commercial real estate industry. The first thing that I would point out to you is that there are a number of personalities and personas that exist in today's commercial real estate organization, and what they want to see and what they want to view in the application greatly differs. So what we've done in the Dynamics version of AscendixRE is personified these particular lines of business, like for instance tenant advisory, agency leasing, and such. And so someone who works with tenants to establish new leases and renewals of leases would drill into the tenant advisory area of AscendixRE and have a streamlined experience that gives them visibility to only those aspects of the tool that are important to them. And in this particular example, simply conducting a search for a record that they may be doing business with. At the very root of CRM is contact and company management. And so in this particular example, we've done a quick lookup of an account that we may be working with, and it gives us a great deal of visibility at the corporate level, the relationship here, phone numbers, perhaps the SIC code, and other variable details that exist for the corporation, including where they're located in a map. In addition, we can take a look at what kind of conversation has happened in the past, as well as what might be scheduled in the future, along with some notes. And then on the right-hand side, as is the case with most relationships, is that we manage relationships with multiple people that work for those companies. And so we see that we've got a list of contacts that are available for us to access. And then in the lower right-hand corner, what we're all in the business of doing is making money, helping clients, and we do that through transactions and or what we call deals in AscendixRE, and those are available here in the lower right-hand corner. Not much in the way of having to click around. Everything is very readily available to you and accessible for quick decision making. So as we navigate through to another area of the tool, that being the deals. You'll get a sense for what all is contained in that deal. So for instance, this happens to be a tenant rep deal where we're helping a tenant with a lease, and we see that we've got a number of details here, including what the new lease is. We've got some conversation going on here with the activities, but we see also that there is a property record that's been connected to this deal. They have an interest in Preston Park Financial Center. It's an office building, and there is an availability in Suite 250 that has struck a chord with them, and they're wanting to find out more information about that, perhaps going on a property tour, what have you. And so these collections of deals end up becoming a visibility tool for not only the broker individually, but also for the organization. Embedded in the deal also are what we call the responsible parties. Of course, the client or the prospective tenant here, and the contact that is the lead point of contact for that tenant, but also other interested parties, like for instance the listing broker, as well as the owner of that building and the contacts within, which are in and of themselves company and contact records inside of CRM. So you've got this really interrelated application that harvests all this information and organizes it in a way that you can make decisions off of. So as I mentioned, this is just one deal that, if rolled up, can actually show you a forecast of deals, as we see here. And what we've got is the ability to, as Chad had mentioned, graphically depict this information so that it speaks to us in a much more informative way rather than just a simple spreadsheet. And there are a variety of ways in which to chart and graph that information so that you can consume it and make business decisions on it. As we see here, we've got all open deals that are listed, and an attribute, as I showed earlier, is that each of them may have a property connected to them. So in AscendixRE, to make this commercial real estate specific, we spent a great deal of time building out the property entity. Buildings, assets, maybe other ways in which you would describe this particular aspect of the AscendixRE solution, but ultimately we're describing a physical property here at the top level where we've given it a name. It's got a physical address. We've got a latitude and longitude, which allows us to do some really interesting things with maps. As you can see here, a simple plotting is occurring. But you'll notice also that there are interested parties that have been enumerated: the owner, landlord, the contact there, the property manager, the contacts there, as well as the listing broker. And so no longer are we relegated to emailing someone or going to a separate system to find out who these people are that we need to contact that may influence my deal, but rather just go to the centralized CRM system that's been made commercial real estate specific to get to that information. So this is the top level information at the property, but there are also other details as well. In some cases, when we're tracking market properties that we're not as familiar with, it might be interesting to actually see images associated with these properties. And as Chad mentioned earlier, these images are not just for on-screen viewing, but can be used and incorporated into reporting as well as marketing tools like brochures. Amongst the images also is the ability to take a look at the leases, the active leases that are in the building. Who are the tenants? What's the lease rate, the commencement and expiration? This, up to this point, in some organizations resides somewhere in a back office tool and is really not accessible for a broker. And so now it's been made available into the CRM system for decision making and visibility. And in addition to the lease information, there's also availabilities. You know, what inventory is available in this property, so that if I do have a prospective tenant that has shown a distinct amount of interest in it, I can quickly present my market knowledge to the marketplace and give them that information, whether it be over the phone, via some sort of an email, or in front of them via mobile devices that we'll talk about here shortly. So this property has a conjunction of leases and availabilities, which allow us, as Chad mentioned earlier, to generate a visual stacking plan that reflects the current state of this particular property. We see that we've got a legend below that allows us to understand the lease expiration ideas around the leases that are current, as well as unused space. So these stacking plans we have found have spoken much more deeply and intelligently to brokers as they try to understand the state of this particular asset in the marketplace. If we go back to the availabilities in a scenario that is very common to the tenant rep broker. Oftentimes after having gone through a property tour or just having had a discussion about an availability, that particular point of contact might desire to have something as a takeaway that they can share with other people that are involved in the organization in the decisions around leasing. And ultimately what we've tried to do is process flow the creation of a brochure or a microsite. And so in this example, we've gone from Preston Park Financial Center into the availabilities. And this particular tenant has expressed interest in Suite 920. And so we can go to a local menu here and select the Create Brochure facility, which at this point, I actually may have a login. Let me log back into this. And the brochure process works as follows. The administrator will have created a series of templates that will be made available for the broker, at which point they simply go to the availability that they want to push that brokerage into that template and actually perform this mail merging process. So we've got a quick login here. And at this point, there's a handshaking going on between the CRM system and the actual brochure process. And so we select from a list of pre-existing templates that the administrator would have fashioned up what we want to put that data into. At this point, we've changed the template. We've already selected the availability. And now we click on the create process, and now the merging of all of that property and availability data and the images that you saw earlier are being fed into this template so that we can either email it or print out a hard copy and hand that to that decision maker so that they can socialize this particular property and the availabilities within it with the other decision makers. And once we're finished with this, we can accept the defaults of what that publication process has rendered, or we can actually edit that particular byproduct as well. And that editing may result in maybe text edits where we want to highlight or accentuate certain attributes of the property, or it may be that we want to change some of the artwork here, and the graphics that we saw earlier are made available in this publication process so that we can maybe bring a nighttime photo into this that they can then see. And so there's an editing, there's a template tool up front, and then there's a runtime editing capability for the broker so that they can express their individuality in the transaction. So let's move to some other aspects of the tool. As you can appreciate, when you've moved companies and contacts and properties and leases and listings all into one database, you really need to have some rich searching tools to get to all of this information. And so we've brought forward a tool called the Advanced or Quick Search that allows us to take that data and express it in meaningful use case ways. And let me give you an example here where we grab, say, the properties template that allows us to go in and do searches on property attributes. And as you can see, adjacent to that query by example area is a map. And so if we were to zoom out or zoom in, we can take that map in conjunction with some of these searching capabilities over here and come up with a result set. So let's grab, for example, all properties that are of type office that are in a certain radius from, let's just say, the middle of Amsterdam. And so I'm going to anchor my selection here and drag it out ever so slightly, at which point I can now perform a search. Having performed the search, it comes back and plots those properties, allowing me to see where they're located. And at that point, I can drill into any one of those and see the details about that particular property. So those searching tools are not only relegated to property searches, but we can also use them for searching for prospective tenants and investors alike. So in this particular case, I grabbed a property that I've been in the office of earlier this week and immediately went from a search drilling into and visiting images associated with that particular property. So that's a great example of one search scenario that we have available, and there are others as well. But what I would like to do at this juncture is actually migrate over to a mobile example that we have that I think really epitomizes the ability for us to leverage this data while out in the field. And so I'm going to reflect the image of my iPad on the screen here. There we go. And let's see if we're still logged in. So in this particular example, we'll see that we're highlighting the properties area of the product. There are a number of other navigation items on the left-hand side. You see companies, contacts, but imagine all of that information now being highly mobilized for your iPhone or iPad and being made available to you while you're in front of that client, whether it be an investor or tenant. So in this particular example, having access to your entire portfolio of property information on the iPad, I could go in and perhaps do a quick search on properties that are in, say, where I'm from, the city of Dallas. However, I could also use other methods of search, such as what we call faceted searches. And so I've taken my finger and I've swiped from left to right and I've exposed these facets that allow me to select details about the properties that I want to hone in on. And so in this case, I might say, let me just have all the properties that are in the Netherlands that may be, for instance, office properties. And at that point, I now have nothing but those properties in my list here. If I wanted to go back to a property that has a great deal of information about it in the database, I could actually go to let me clear my filters here, and we're going to go back to the Preston Park Financial Center property, and I'll slide that back over. And you're now going to see the stacking plan on a mobile device. And so I can expand that particular stacking plan and make that highly visible here so I can go in and assess the state of the union on this particular asset without having to go back to the office. Chad mentioned also the ability for brochure creation on such a device. And so if I were to take the Preston Park Financial Center property and I depress that, it's allowing me to drag that over to the dashboard or the workspace, at which point I can now use the composition tool that I showed on the desktop and make a publication available without leaving their site. So in front of them, I get the request for the brochure. I actually take the property and the availability, select the template, and I do that all from right in front of them. So I think this would be interesting, Chad. We talked about maybe giving back some lessons learned. You've been doing CRM for quite a while, and I'm sure, I know for a fact that not everything went exactly to plan. You learned some things to do and maybe not to do if you were to do this ever again. Perhaps you could share a few of those lessons learned with the group and perhaps somebody who's yet to embark on a CRM journey.
Sure. The first one that pops into mind immediately when you talk about lessons learned is training. And it seems to be one of the first things that's cut in every project, either because the timeline gets compressed or budget gets compressed. But training, we have found, is the number one thing that increases user adoption. And I'm not talking about the training of, hey, the system's rolling out, it goes live tomorrow, so let's all get in a room and show you how this works. I'm talking about end-to-end training from the time that we are getting ready to start working on a new system for a country or put in the system for the country. So say we're rolling out, we call it client first, so I will struggle to not call it client first, but say we're rolling out Microsoft CRM to a new country that hadn't had it yet. As soon as we make that decision and start gathering their particular requirements for the changes that they need, we start a change management process and start getting word out about Microsoft CRM and doing webinars and sending out emails about this great system that's coming, trying to generate excitement. It also gets people kind of seeing screenshots and starting to see what's coming. So it falls under change management, but that's with our training department. Once we roll it out, then we do spend a lot of time on the training, getting the training just right so that we're focusing on business processes and not just click here, but actually walking them through examples for what they do. So we train based on whatever business line they're in. We train the tenant reps different than we train capital markets brokers because they do different things. So that's key. And then finally, even after they're done training and they've gone back to their desk, We do follow-up training pretty regularly in the first couple of months after go live. And then we have regular webinars saying, here's an advanced feature that you can go use. Here's something that maybe you didn't know. Look at how somebody's using CRM to do this. So we have those regular webinars for our internal folks to kind of keep the training going. So yeah, that's my very first, and that's the thing that pops in my head immediately is training. Other lessons learned?
I've got one for you. Let me throw this out here. As technologists and those who sell technology, we feel maybe it's sometimes an obligation to solve every problem that has ever come to us. And in so doing, oftentimes can find ourselves in an over-engineered state. I use the word less is more sometimes. If you could potentially talk a little bit about lessons that you learned on that front.
Yes, definitely. We originally tried to make our CRM everything for everybody, which means when you look at our company form, there's over 500 fields on it. And you can imagine how daunting that is. First-time user, even a regular user, you log in and you're like, I'm looking for this one piece of information. How many employees are at this company? And I've got to look through 500 fields. So 90% of those fields are not pertinent to you. They're pertinent to other business lines. So what we have done is a couple of things. One is within CRM itself, we're using role-based forms so that we can slim down the company form, just to stick with that example, to see only what a tenant rep person needs to see about a company, or only what agency leasing, or whatever they need to see. And then we're also using the SmartClient, Ascendix's product, and their iPad tools, and we're doing different configurations. So even though it's the same SmartClient, a tenant rep person logs into it and he sees a totally different layout and screens and data than what the agency leasing person sitting right next to him sees. So we're really personalizing and not trying to do everything for everybody. But then in the database, we still have all that information. We can slice it and dice it and report on it. And even if somebody doesn't see it on their screen, we can deliver them reports on it and give them that information to them. So that is definitely a lesson learned. Quadrupled our adoption, going from everything for everybody to personalization. So yeah, that's a huge one.
Well, the data, there's obviously broker data that exists in some distributed manner, whether it be an Outlook address book or maybe some individual contact manager. Perhaps you could describe the importance of responsibly bringing that data in to make sure that there is adoption on an individual basis as well as perhaps a line of business basis.
Well, my first thought when you say data is never as easy as you think it's going to be. Data is probably one of the more difficult parts. I mentioned all of our mergers and acquisitions that we have done over the past few years, and you add onto that just hiring a broker or broker groups and the data that they bring along, and then they get in the Americas, it's big to get just dumps of lease comps. I heard one broker tell me that he went to a lease comp party and everybody took thumb drives and exchanged them and shared lease comps, and then of course they want that data in the system. So getting that in is always a challenge. But as far as being responsible getting that in, we have very strict processes to pull that in, where we look at the data, we compare it to the data that we already have, we bump it up, and if we have a match, JLL data wins every time. So we're not going to bring in somebody's data if it looks like what we have is already there. If it's slightly different, we're going to assume that JLL data is right. We'll save that data and then talk to a broker and say, it looks like you have a different email address for this contact. Do you want to bring that in your private area, etc.? But for the most part, JLL data wins. That's one of our keys to keeping our data fairly clean. We've got a big MDM initiative going on right now where we compare all companies and properties to our company and property MDM to make sure that's good. And then What else do we do with keeping data clean? Well, one of the things we do that's a customization for us, I think, I can't remember if this was yours or ours, it's been so long, but we have something that we call JLL Contacts, and then it allows us to relate all brokers that are in connection with a company or a contact or a property or a lease. So we may have a primary broker for that contact, but there may be 30 other brokers in different business lines that interact with that contact, and they can tag themselves as a JLL contact to that particular person. And so they can easily see what's going on with that. It'll sync to their Outlook, etc. So I could go on and on for the different data rules we have.
No, that's helpful. Thank you, Chad. I thought it might be beneficial for the audience to hear a little bit about what's worked and what hasn't. I think at this point we'll maybe look to wrap. So I'll hand it back over to Manuel and take it out.
All right. So I would like to thank all the speakers of today, Wes and also Chad from JLL. And of course I would like to thank the audience for listening in today. We hope that you have a good idea on what this technology and these solutions can mean for you as a commercial real estate company. More information about us and about our solutions can be found on rexdynamics.com. Please don't hesitate to contact us either for a demo or free advice. Okay, so that will be all for today. Thank you.